You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Albert Padilla, and this is episode 350, The Mandalorian, Chapter 11, The Heiress. And wow, I mean, I was just thinking about that. 350 episodes. We're on track to hit 400 here sometime, I think, next year, if my math is right. But we're going to break down probably one of the more exciting episodes for me, at least so far in the series, really as a whole, just because of my liking to both the Clone Wars and Rebels. But to help me kind of break down this episode to the nth degree is none other than Jonesy. Jonesy, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight, sir?
I'm doing well, man. Whole hour early. What's going on?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what got into us.
Well, we're just trying to take care of our East Coast friends, make sure they can listen in before they hit the sack a little bit early.
Yeah, that's it. Now, yeah, we are starting the show just an hour earlier than we normally do. So for anybody that catches this an hour into it, I apologize if you didn't catch all the stuff that we sent out. But thank you for everybody that's already showed up here. This should be exciting. Maybe we'll even see Mike Rondo stick it out for a little bit of time here. He's usually in bed pretty early.
Yeah, no promises on that one, Mikey Bear.
Yeah. But, okay, so let's do this. We got a couple things I do want to get out of the way here first. Quickly, there is I want to talk about the Light of the Jedi, which is the first novel in the High Republic series that's coming out. This is coming out in January by Charles Soule. And if you go out to StarWars.com, they have the first 8 chapters available to you for you to read. And I had a chance to read these. I was putting them off because they were doing like 2 chapters, then waiting a week, another 2 chapters. Finally, all 8 are out now, and I got a chance to read all these, and I'm pretty excited about it. Now, granted, I was still telling Jonesy before we came on the air, they've had a lot of time to think about this, so like it's pretty meticulous in terms of where. I'm like, there's no fluff, there's no slowdown. This story, you get thrown right in the middle of what's going on, and it's fast. It's very, very quick in terms of what's happening. So that's all exciting. We'll see if they can keep that up throughout the course of the entire novel, and where it's going to naturally probably slow down. Well, it's yet to be determined, but they do start off with a really big bang, which I really enjoy. So if you get a chance to go out there and take a look at it, and we need to break this down. I think we need to talk about this when we do. I want to do some kind of a High Republic thing before we hit January. But have you had a chance to look at this yet?
No, yeah, you sent me the links, so I'm looking forward to doing that. But yeah, if you hit the ground running, like you said, they have a lot of time to plan for this. So yeah, expectations are going to be, I think expectations overall a bit managed right now, low. But like you said, I mean, if they jump out of the gate and they hit a home run here, or at least they set this new world up for us, or the kind of this new timeline of sorts, then maybe we've got something here. So that's encouraging praise from you. So go check those first 8 chapters out.
It's pretty good. I really enjoyed it. And then the other thing I want to talk about is, this is a shameless plug at this point, but as some of you guys know, I do another show called The Basement, which is a Ready Player One podcast, and I'm doing it with my brother Will. We get people that come on from time to time as guests, and we really break down every one of the chapters of the Ready Player One novel, but there's a huge focus and emphasis on the pop culture that's found throughout all of the book. And so we dig into that, down into the weeds. I mean, if you ever want to know anything about chapstick or, any movie or 80s movie. Yeah, or Zaxxon, or, what's the difference between new Coke and old Coke, right? We really get into all the weeds there in terms of that stuff. And so I'm pretty excited. The Ready Player 2 novel comes out here November 24th. And we're going to have Ernie Klein himself, the author himself, on the show live. He's going to actually do a show with us, and that'll be December 2nd. So that'll be a Wednesday, December 2nd at 9 p.m. I want to show everybody here, at least tonight. I've got the trailer. I guess I did, not the trailer. It's a kind of a little promo that I did here recently that we'll start putting out next week. But let me play this so you can kind of see it and see if you guys, or if you've got questions, we can take those real quick here. I got all fancy with this.
Man, I'm telling you, went all out.
I did. Didn't cost me a dime.
Just your soul.
Just the soul.
That looks great, man. So,
thank you.
Why is he coming? Is this like a part of a promotional book tour type of thing, or what's the plan here?
That's a great question. So he's actually doing a virtual book tour that starts literally with the day of when the novel comes out on the 24th. he'll be doing these virtual book signings. And so you can go sign up for them. You can get a book, you can get a pin. He's doing like a Q&A kind of thing. And since we're doing this a week after the book's been out, we'll probably be breaking down chapter 1. There's an epilogue, but we'll probably do that the day of the novel when it comes out on the 24th. So we're actually going to do like chapter 1 with Ernie Klein, just like if he was any other guest that's coming on. Now, granted, we're going to let him pimp the book and maybe ask a couple questions, but we're going to do a show just like we normally do. So that'll include, we're probably going to throw a little Gunter game at him, and like we normally do as well. But yeah, we're pretty excited, and we want to take some questions. So I've got some questions queued up from some of our supporters. I've reached out to some of the like the Facebook groups and stuff that are Ready Player One Facebook groups, and they're kind of collecting questions. And so it's going to be a mixture of both a show with a Q&A, and I don't know, we're just going to go until he's got time. He seems pretty down with it and pretty excited, so we're excited. So hopefully you guys can join us. If you haven't had a chance, please follow and subscribe to the YouTube channel for The Basement. It's The Basement RPO, and yeah, would really appreciate anybody and everybody's support to come out for that and just view it and watch it with us. So
yeah, so it's going to be a 4-hour epic, right?
If we can do 4 hours, I would love it. But I didn't tell him what time. Like I just said, hey, come on the show. He's like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. Whatever. We're talking back and forth. I never told him how long we would go. So I don't know if he knows. He says he listens to the show, so he's got to know we do like 2.5 hour, 3 hour shows. So I don't know, man. Hopefully he sticks around for the whole thing. If he can't, I'll be just as happy. So, okay. Well, thank you. That's my shameless plug. Thank you guys. Let's get into chapter 11 of The Mandalorian. So, all right, Jonesy, give me your first impressions, and let's just pull the Band-Aid off. 35 minutes. I know there's been a lot of discussion back and forth about 35 minutes. There's like the big three topics are: was 35 minutes too much time? Not enough time? It's actually been I think the question is, was it not enough time? Is number one, right? Why does the Mon Calamari wearing a blue sweater and was no, and then
at that.
And then why is she not look 50 years old and her being Bo-Katan? But seriously, give me your first impressions on this episode.
Overall, I mean, it was like we're back on track. It's kind of what it felt like with great action. We're back to getting a little bit of lore, getting kind of the story rolling again. It feels like we're still in the side quest kind of thing that the Mandalorian seems to be happening a little more frequently now, but at least this one had a lot more story, or at least there's a potential for more story here. I think Mike said it was perhaps a bit light for him, but I think when you start looking in between the lines and in between the cracks, you start to see the things that they're able to pull from a little bit later on down the line. And I know we've got some great questions about Bo-Katan here, but man, hearing this and drawing back, and when she mentions her rightful place, and those kind of comments, we know what she's talking about from Clone Wars and Rebels, and it's just man, it was really cool, and it felt really familiar, and it just felt right. And Kate Sackhoff was spot on. I mean, she was absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
What about you?
No, I mean, I was delighted. I mean, granted, 35 minutes wasn't long, and I was expecting, given, we went into the season and they were talking about, we're not going to be, beholden to like a certain time period. And the first episode was like 50 minutes, and I'm thinking, wow, we're going to get 40, 45 out of these, every one of them. And I think if you probably average them all out by the end of the season, you're probably going to be hitting that 40-minute mark, right? Yeah. Maybe a little bit higher. Who knows? But the speed of which it was, the pacing I thought was great. There was a lot of great action, and there was a lot of stuff in there for anybody that was a big Clone Wars person or anybody that was a Rebels person. There was so much in there that you could really kind of extrapolate and dig out of it and really enjoy on a different level. And I had a chance to kind of test the waters with a number of folks that I know personally who are not the Clone Wars fans, and they're not Rebels fans, and this is their first entry into Star Wars outside of the main movies, right? And by the main movies, most of these folks, I would say by and large, most of these folks are sequel trilogy people, right? So if you think about it from that perspective, they don't have all this background and knowledge and context and stuff that we've got from those two series. And so just kind of, feeling them out a little bit, they were all pretty excited about it. And it's kind of like when we were talking about, season 1 and to some extent the Rise of Skywalker, right? When you have these new audiences, they do get it. I mean, not to take anything away from them, they do understand it. They're able to follow along. But the minute you start throwing these other things and letting them know, did you know that this, they're like, wow, that's really interesting. I had no idea. And now, granted, not one of them said, please tell me more, Albert. It was more like, can you please stop? I already tried to get out of this conversation. You're still persisting. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot for, I guess, for both factions, right? Or for both groups, whether you're a hardcore person or this is your first entry foray into Star Wars. I think there's a lot there for both groups, which I think is really good. I think that speaks to what the writing that they did there.
Yeah, absolutely. And to answer your question, I did feel like it was a bit short, but I think part of it is because we just wanted to see more Bo and her little group, and the action sequences were great. And man, Bryce Dallas Howard really just visually, and I know we're going to come into some of the Easter eggs that she laid out there for us, but man, visually, this thing was a treat to watch, and you just wanted more, and you wanted more, and you're like, okay, well, how, can they just build this out a little bit more? Can we have a little more conversation? Can Bo and her group stick around a little bit longer? It's just, and we had some comments, mark of a great episode is, they kind of leave you wanting more, and they sure did that. Yeah.
Yep. And then, okay, so let's jump into the episode. I know there's quite a few people online with us here for the live recording. Thank you guys for being here. Hopefully you can stick around. If you can't, you got to bounce. It's fine. Totally cool. Listen to the podcast as well. But
we will take roll when we're done.
What's that?
We will take roll when we're done.
Yeah, we're going to take roll. But no, thanks for everybody for joining. This is really great. And love seeing all the comments. And where we can, we'll try to interact with those comments. And there's some new people in here. I know, sorry, I'm going to call her out. Mandy Baldwin. She's been a long-time fan of our supporter of our show. Yes. And I just saw her name in there. So if you're still watching, Mandy, thanks for being here. Okay. Let's jump into this. It starts with I guess the opening sequence is really, we're very familiar with it, right? This was what was in the trailer. We kind of had some presumptions going in as to how he got in there. I don't think any of that really played out. I didn't get that one right. But we were kind of putting two to two together where the ship was in such dismal kind of, state that by the time it went into entry, there was a high chance that this thing was going to burn up on entry. And it's just funny because he's got no guidance system whatsoever. He's talking about he's got to do this manually. He's almost out of fuel. He makes a comment about if they don't pull this off, they're going to burn to a crisp. And then he tells the frog lady, "I need your help." She's helping right there. There's this like really moment of dire straits. And then you look over and the child's sitting there eyeballing the eggs, getting ready, wanting to eat them. He's sizing them up again to see how many he can get in his mouth. But it was pretty intense there at the beginning. But I guess your thoughts on all that, and then the last thing is really just around the child. I think we got confirmation in this episode, and we can just talk about it now. He was just eating them. We said we were okay if that was really all that he was doing. We're still okay with it. He wasn't trying to harbor them, or he didn't regurgitate them in any way.
Right.
He was just hungry. He's got a thing for frog meat. But tell me your thoughts on this scene, and we can get into if you want to touch on the Apollo 13 thing as well, that'd be cool.
Yeah, and actually in the opening sequence, we have almost looking like confirmation, like the child is meditating. I mean, it looks like he's sitting there cross-legged. Now it looks like he's asleep.
Yeah.
I think it looks like he gets woken up, but it was kind of cool having the idea that he, is maturing to be, to know that he needs to meditate. Of course, we know he's not mature at all because he's clearly acting like a baby, and we see that throughout the episode in a couple of different ways.
Right.
But yeah, overall, I mean, yeah, it was a great sequence to do it. And you were, man, I thought for sure you were on the money with this was the last of the Razor Crest, because it was on fire. Yeah. It right when you think you got it, you made it and you landed, then it falls into the ocean, into the harbor. And I just thought for sure, I was like, damn it, Albert's right again.
Yeah. Well,
and then nope, they salvaged it.
They salvaged it. I know, but I mean,
literally toothpicks and rubber bands and everything else, and string.
Yeah. I think I said it wasn't going to last. I said it wouldn't last this episode, or it wouldn't last the season. Like if there was one casualty, it would be the Razor Crest. And I would say that was pretty close. I mean, it's not out of kaput. I never said it'd be gone forever, but I mean, that thing is literally being held, like you said, held up by rope. And I mean, and I didn't want to steal, I was going to say this joke for later, but if you ever walked into a Long John Silver's during the 80s, and you looked at the decor, that's exactly what was going on there. There's like ropes, and they've got netting just kind of thrown everywhere. So it just, you get the sense that I'm in a ship or whatever. That's exactly what it was like. So
those delicious crunchies with malt vinegar.
Oh yeah. That was the good stuff at the very bottom there.
All right, back on track.
Yeah, but
Apollo 13. Let's talk about it.
I know that was awesome. Now to be fair, I didn't catch that at first. It was somebody had it like that night or that morning of. Somebody was already talking about it, and I think later on that morning, someone had posted the side-by-side comparison of what she had done with, a tribute to her father's work, right, Apollo 13. And so if you've not had a chance to see this, that whole sequence with the ship coming in and into the atmosphere, catching fire right underneath, and then you can see the control panel up on top, and then it cuts away, and you can see the Razor Crest kind of going down, and this flame of smoke and fire from a kind of a long shot kind of thing. All that was a direct tribute to Apollo 13, which is what Ron Howard, her dad, directed. And there's some great stuff out there if you haven't had a chance to see it, where they've done a scene by scene kind of side by side comparison of it all. So really cool stuff from her. But I mean, overall, and I know we're going to talk about this kind of organically as we talk through the episode. Man, my gosh, she did some amazing stuff. Like there's some of my favorite shots in this series. And I don't want to talk about it because I'll save it. But yeah, she did a great job.
Yep, it was great. I really liked the kind of the nod to her dad, and the shots were really cool, and she tweaked them just a touch, but they were clearly, I mean, they're so spot on, and it's such a great job, and it didn't take away from it. You watched it, you're like, okay, well, there's something familiar about this, and then, like you said, when we saw the side by side video, it was like, wow, how did I not put this all together?
Yeah,
Apollo 13 was such a huge hit for Tom Hanks and Ron Howard that just didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they come in and they survive-ish.
Sort of.
Man, he was coming in like really fast though, right? So he was like coming in super fast. They're telling him to slow down. I'm trying, and so on and so forth. And then all of a sudden he hits the jets again, and then he's able to slow down, like on last command type of thing. So he wasn't trying that hard, I guess, when he was coming in.
But yeah. I wonder if it was just kind of like it wasn't working until that moment, and then he was able to kind of give it one last oomph. And it was at that point he had nothing left, and that probably what blew the right engine out completely, which made it topple over and down into the water. But that lots of sound Easter eggs in here too, and visual Easter eggs as well. Yeah, for sure. There's when it went into the water too, and the way they cut back to the Mon Calamari, the harbor guy that working there, and then just cut to the title sequence. I mean, it was really good timing in terms of like comedy as well. But yeah, I mean, there's parts flying off, and that was the other thing too. Like, this thing is in, it's in contention for worst piece of junk in the galaxy, right? With the Millennium Falcon, and I've already seen these debates. They're already out there. People are talking about it. Which one's worse for wear? Is it the Millennium Falcon? Is it the Razor Crest? And I think you still got a
Razor Crest right now.
Yeah, it's probably the Razor Crest right now. I think about the Falcon in like Solo, and that was pretty roughed up, more than we've seen ever before. But I think if you compare those two, it's pretty close. Although the Falcon was able to take off. I think the crest was down and out. Like it wasn't going to lift off without somebody repairing. I mean, dang, they dragged this thing right out of the water, which, by the way, that was a very cool concept that they did. They took the cranes from I meant to grab the book before we started, and I didn't do it, but the Art of Solo, they've got those cranes in there, those harbor cranes that they were that they showed. And it looks a little bit different. It's a little bit skinnier. But that, I mean, it looks like something we would expect out of Star Wars. It just looked really cool. It looked like a walker, but more practical in terms of what it was used for. But
yeah, it just looked like a freight container mover that you see at the various docks and harbors. And of course, you had the great sound effects of it as well. And of course, when it toppled in, you get a little bit of when the Falcon fails, you get that little hint of that sound as it goes in when the engine fails. So it was a great little touch as well. And there is stuff falling off of the ship, like you said, and it's still falling off later on when they do their takeoff. But so I don't think there's a question. This thing is literally falling apart.
This is the biggest piece of junk.
It is losing panels left and right. So I don't know how this thing is space worthy, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't. And when we get to what's next, we'll come back to that because I have a theory there about what's going to happen with that thing. But all right, so we finally get into the show again after the title sequence, and we get the Mon Calamari wearing the blue sweater, and like he never promises he's going to fix it. He just says, "I'll make it fly again," is all he says, right? He doesn't say anything about repairing, which I think was good because he comes back later on. He's like, "I gave you 1,000 credits, and this is the best you can do." But yeah, there was like the whole time that we're seeing the harbor. Right, you've got Korans, you've got the Mon Calamari. I think back to Clone Wars, and they're fighting in the battles and all of that. And so, I mean, I guess, and that's one of those things, right? Like where if you're just a casual viewer and you've not seen the Clone Wars, you're watching this and going, okay, yeah, it makes sense. You've got these aquatic life forms that are just hanging out together, but that wasn't always the case. These guys were at war with one another. Right. So I think it's really cool because it does kind of show you that a lot has happened, a lot has transpired, that the two races are able to kind of live and cohabitate to this extent. Now, they could be distanced from the Mon Calamari and the Korans that we saw fighting. Maybe they really weren't part of that battle or didn't care or whatever, right? That could be part of it. But it was interesting to see them together, given what we've seen in the history past there before.
Right. And we don't know the history of Trask at all to know where it was in the war, if it was neutral, if it was something else. But I think those are nice things. Those are the things you can give back to the viewers who have been with you for a really long time.
Yeah.
And like you said, making these connections, throughout all of the different series, and having to be able to, or the ability to ask those questions now and saying, okay, well, how did they get from point A to point B? Because you're right, they were at each other's throats at points in the Clone Wars. And I think even some of the books, I think there was one of the books that they were really at it. So it's just fantastic to be able to have these things to tie in for the more hardcore fans. And they're very, very subtle, and they don't distract you from the overall story to where the people who are watching it get bogged down in trying to explain who they are and what their history is, because it just doesn't matter for the context of this show. But it's something really interesting if you've been around for a bit.
Yeah. There's something there for everybody at this point. So, and then we get the most beautiful sequence ever, right, in Star Wars, with the frog lady finding the frog. And my gosh, like, there's so many things, so many videos that have been made now with them talking about how they're a wonderful couple and loving. I mean, they're like the epitome of what a relationship should be. I want to do like Everything I Do For You by Bryan Adams. I want to do like a love montage with the frogs. I know Mike would love it. So hopefully he's still watching and listening, but that'd be really good. But no, seriously, that was it was kind of a cool moment. It was a tender moment. They, there wasn't any dialogue that was said, but you kind of got the sense that, okay, yeah, they do kind of love each other, and I guess all's good there. But it was fine. I don't know. And let me just ask you this in terms of that: did this episode do anything for 349 in your opinion? Right? Did it help you in any way? Do you care any more, any less about the frog lady? I mean, we know she becomes pivotal because. And I don't want to say they set up 349 because he needed a babysitter or an in-home daycare for Baby Yoda in this episode. But what do you think there's anything else that we'll see here?
No, I think we're kind of done with the frog people, and I'm glad we tied this up really quickly. It kind of went on for an episode and a half too long, I think, in general, but it got us where we needed to be. I mean, and that's what it was, and We've got a kind of a pattern developing though with babysitters, and now granted, I know the Mandalorian can't have the kid with him all the time doing all these things, and goodness knows this kid has seen a lot of action already, but it seems like we've got babysitters, we've got him in trouble, and then sometimes we have kind of someone else in distress or some problem we have to solve, which is fine. It's decent TV like that, but we've got this pattern though of like needing a babysitter and handing them off, and it's just. I don't know how to fix that though, because I understand why that has to keep happening, but it's getting a little cumbersome at this point. I'm not going to say annoying or anything like that. It's just a bit cumbersome that we've got to go and drop the kid off. Could we have used that 30 or 45 seconds for something else rather than dropping the kid off? Yeah.
All right, and I think this episode's going to change a few things too, because you think about it, he's lost his stroller, right? That thing's no longer working, so now it really is like I've got to have this kid in a satchel the entire time. And that's kind of dangerous. So, but yeah, more on that when we get to the very end, because I want to speculate a little bit on where we expect this to go from here, given what just happened in this episode. Mm-hmm. And so he makes a comment, "I know you're hungry." This is like after again he's been eyeballing the eggs. He's probably sad because his meal or snack time is leaving finally. But there's we get that shot of where he sees Sasha Banks. There's a character. What was the name of that one? Koska. Is it Koska? Yeah. Koska Reeves? Something like that. I think we'll just call it Koska. Koska Reeves. But yeah, we saw her. Did not turn out to be Sabine. That's fine. Nope. But she was a Mandalorian. And again, this is when I think we said this when we were talking about, when we broke down the trailer. We've seen Mandalorians wearing cloaks like this before. And we saw it in season 7 of the Clone Wars, right? That's not uncommon, especially in the Nine Elves. That's how they were getting around. And partly because they can't just be walking around in Mandalorian armor, given where the Empire is and what was happening at the time. So it did make sense that they would be running around in secrecy like this. So, and you think about it from this perspective, she definitely wants to not be walking around by herself in this area, because it seems like everybody on this planet is out for Beskar. So she's walking around as a hot target without covering herself up in some way. But more on that when we get to her. We head into the tavern, and this is gonna sound trivial, but like, did the hands on the Mon Calamari like bother you? Because it was like they're like oven mitts, right? They don't really move, and they're doing this kind of thing, and
they seem very plasticky. They seem like the plastic lobsters you can get, or sometimes you see some decor elsewhere. That's really what it felt like, didn't it?
Yeah, and so like when I think back to like Return of the Jedi, And even like Rogue One, like it doesn't bother me, but for some reason it stuck out here. And I don't know if it was just because it's TV or I expected at this point they'd be able to do some CGI. Like I don't mind some of the CGI. I'll tell you this, it didn't take me out of the episode at all. It wasn't until the second, maybe third viewing that I was like really paying attention to the fact that their fingers don't articulate when they grab things. And I think, and then I started really watching like, okay, so when they shot this, she shot it so that he didn't really have to do a whole lot of grabbing. Even with when the money comes out, he just kind of scoops it with his hand, doesn't really necessarily pick it up with his fingers, right? So they were playing it pretty safe in terms of how they shot it. But again, it probably is trivial on my part. But
how are you feeling about the voices for like the corn that they did? They had a bit of a southern accent to it, a bit of a drawl. Are the different voices we're hearing from some of the characters? Because we talked all the way back to episode 1 or chapter 1, right?
Yeah.
With the way that the characters speak and and just the way they talk sometimes, or the voice inflections that we get are not kind of these gravelly or these foreign languages that seem all these complex and a series of just noises sometimes.
Yeah.
Is this wearing a little bit on you, or are you still kind of cool with it?
No, I think I'm fine with it. And I think I'm fine with it because we got a lot of that in Clone Wars and Rebels. They were already doing it there. Now the movies is different. They, I don't think they ventured very far from much at all, right? They pretty much kept to the script in terms of what and we're going to use the example of this a little bit later. Like for the longest time, all of the Empire were British people. When we got to the First Order, okay, no longer British accents, but even in this episode, this was like one of the first things that stuck out to me was that we have somebody who's in the Empire who doesn't have a British accent, right? So I think no, not really, and only because again we're used to all. I mean, there's only so many voices you can do when you have series like the Clone Wars and the Rebels with that many episodes. You kind of need some variation in it, and so yeah. And I think for the type of people that these were, it kind of made sense, especially like with this Mandalorian in general, we get a lot of Southern accents because they're playing up on the whole Western outlaw kind of thing. So it didn't bother me too much. I know where you're coming from though. I saw some folks, I wouldn't say upset, but certainly calling it out as to, why they would have those type of draws.
We're still getting used to it, I think. And I didn't really have much of a problem with it. It kind of fit the character. And like you said, it fit the atmosphere. But at the same time, it was just there is that twinge of it being just slightly out of place from what we're used to when we envision a cantina type of scenario or scene and things like that. So still training our brains a bit to be a bit more open into what the how characters should sound and are sounding.
Yeah. Phil says, "Welcome to Parenthood, Mando. Kids are always dragging you down, man. I'm telling you what, that brother knows right there. That is for sure." Okay, so. So he sits down. He's like, "Hey, I need something for my friend." And like, there was a part of me died because he didn't call him my son. He said my friend.
Right.
Again, not a big deal.
About you,
but I caught it and I was like, "Oh, why would you call him your friend? You take care of him. He snuggles under your arm. You guys share these moments together. Just call him your son." Oh, that would be kind of weird. I get it.
My boy.
Yeah. But yeah, I did want him to do that. And then again, the Mon Calamari flan that we finally get to see that the big payoff. I wonder if that was planned. It's hard, you got to wonder if this was like he put that in there and goes, next season in chapter 11, I'm going to like tie these two together and they're going to.
Right. And for people who maybe don't remember, back in chapter 1, this is what Grief was trying to pay Mando. And he's like, these things are not really worth as much as what they might think. But here it came in handy.
Yeah. There you go. So let's see. Yeah, he says that. So then he walks away. He's like, "Yeah, I know somebody," or whatever. He walks away. And if you go back and turn the subtitles on, you can really hear that conversation. And the conversation is he's talking, the bartender or whatever, the innkeeper is talking to the other guy over there, the Corrin. And the words that come out, he says Mandalorians. And there's like a question mark. This is from the Corrin. And then he follows up with a line saying he's wearing Beskar. So like they're putting that out there, right? That this is really what they want, even though you can't. It's almost inaudible, to be honest. But with subtitles on, you kind of get that sense. So a little trick there, and then we get the face hugger moment with Baby Yoda, and that thing stuck to his face, and he pulls it off, and then stabs it and kills it. I think it was all good stuff. Like
playing
really,
with your food.
Yeah, and then calls him playing with his food. So another parenting moment there, which I thought was really cool. But yeah, he says it says it'll. The Corrin tells him it's going to cost you. I know where others are. It's going to cost you. We now know what he meant. Like they never actually talked about what the deal was or how much it was going to cost him. But I think the Corrin was trying to, indirectly tell the audience that it's going to cost him. It's going to cost him his life and cost him the life of the child. From there, we get to the boat, and that is like, I mean, there's like, you tell me, I can't think of many moments where we're on a boat. I can think of moments where we're on the water, Rise of Skywalker, back to Attack of the Clones, but in a boat in Star Wars, and I'm not counting Last Jedi with the sail bar, the flying boats and that kind of thing. But yeah, it was just a very unique experience. It was a unique thing to witness in Star Wars, that people would be on boats like this. And some people were asking about that too, like why would they use it, and why would they be using boats in the water itself? And it's like, well, you got to catch stuff, and not everybody can have floating repulsor lift type vehicles. So makes sense.
That's the thing. If you take the engines off the back and you replace the corn with a human crew, they really capture the essence of a fishing boat really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you didn't have the Star Wars aspect of it, it was really modeled after just a regular old fishing boat, and it looked great. I thought it looked fantastic. I thought they did a great job of all the detail they had on it, and even the grate where the monster was hiding in there was just. I thought the detail was just fantastic. It really did give you the sense of a fisherman boat, and I really like the idea that these are just blue collar folks. This is their day to day. This is their life. You go out there and you catch fish, you bring it in, you eat some of it, and then you sell the rest, and that's how you make your living, and that's what these harbor towns are built on.
Right.
They're built on fishing and brewing beer usually, or something like that.
Right.
So
yeah.
I thought they captured that essence of it just wonderfully.
Yeah, no, me too. And I think some of the feedback was, well, they're Korans and they should be swimming around. I'm like, well, how much fish can you catch just by yourself, right? You need some place to put it in.
Right.
And
they're not Aquaman, but they can't just summon the fish with their magical Aquaman powers, and have them come into the net. So
yeah, there's a good point. Look at Jackson. Repulsors would probably scare the catch away too. So
there you go.
Makes sense, right? All right, enough of that. That was a minor gripe that I didn't have, but I know I saw some people have. But he talks about the Mammocore, and he's really trying to get him to come out there. Now, we didn't get to see this, and I know some people were like, well, we got the Monster of the Week, but we didn't get a Monster of the Week. I actually like this. I like the fact that, because I was thinking, oh, here we go. Here's another Monster of the Week. We're going to see it, and we're going to have to go through this whole thing. He's going to have to kill it, and we didn't do that, which I thought was good. We knew it was there. We saw the teeth come up. We saw what it was capable of doing. We know what the danger was now of that thing, but we didn't have to see it, which I thought was just fine for me as well. But I think that this is a true dad moment here, where he's like ensuring that the kid's like, okay, you're close enough. No more, any closer, right. You're going to fall in, get back, kind of thing. And then he jumps in, head first to go try to save his kid, which he's not able to do. And I we talked about this in the trailer because we saw him underwater, and I thought, well, Beskar must be made of like something else. I mean, you would think he would just sink like a rock. And maybe to his credit, he was doing whatever he could. Maybe he was using the jetpack. I don't know. But
and somehow, he was. And you can actually see it.
Do you see that? Is it that white, yellowish light that you see that flashes?
Yeah. When they hit him, I think they hit him like in the chest or the head. I couldn't quite make it out. The second time he came up for air.
Yeah.
And you're right. When he sunk down, you can actually see the jets propelling him back up. So he was definitely sinking and struggling to breathe. And we know the helmets aren't sealed like they always led us to believe in the old days with Stormtrooper helmets and all of these. So it makes a lot of sense that he's struggling to do any of this. But it was a little bit curious. I mean, he went down, but he wasn't down there for very long to try to find the kid and do it. I would have thought that he would have put more effort into it. So that part was a little bit confusing if he was all of a sudden trying to make sure they had a way out.
Yeah.
Didn't really get that.
Yeah. Katya said, yeah, I thought it was a Rancor pit vibe. That was very much the same thing, right? The door, the grate opening up, falling in, it closing, everybody looking over.
Oh yeah. And they're looking up. That's a great point.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he makes a comment about we're rich, and so I don't know if they'll dig into this or not. I would like to know more about why, and I think we brought this up in the last episode, like it just seems like everybody is after Beskar, right? These guys have a market for it. We know the Cyclops in the first episode he wants it. The Empire has a ton of it. Like, what are they doing with it, and what's that look like? Maybe we get some of that at some point, but I think what they were just really trying to lay here as far as the seed goes is that, again, there are more people out there that are looking for Beskar, and it must sell for quite a penny, given what we see it do later on when Mandalorian charges when he's on the bridge there. I mean, he took a number of shots, and they didn't even stop him, really. Slowed him down, if nothing else. But
right, and we see this in our own society. When times get tough, hard currency becomes a very dominant presence. So back in the day it was gold and things like that. People want to gravitate to our currency. We know that the credits across the galaxy are worth significantly less than they used to be. And the dollar doesn't go the same distance, or credit doesn't go the same distance anymore. So you have something of pure value that never loses its value with Beskar. And I think that's what this is. I think I kind of equate it to that, where you have this substance that you can do that always retains its value because there's always a buyer for it. Someone always wants it. You can do whatever. And I mean, I'm assuming that they know some people who could smelt it or whatnot, but you always have a buyer for some things like that. And it seems like in Star Wars, armor and weapons tend to be two that you can never go wrong with, and maybe a ship from time to time.
I'm up late at night, usually about 2, 3 in the morning, and these commercials for gold come on. You would do an amazing job pimping Beskar on there, because you just nailed it word for word. So congratulations to you. All right, so this next moment here.
We're gonna get hit for copyright infringement now.
We might. I don't know. We may get some royalties off of it if we're lucky. So this is my first squealing moment of the episode, right? Because when they show, you can see her helmet like through the grate there. Yeah. Oh my goodness! I was like, I lost my whole freaking mind. It was like 2 a.m. I was sitting there yelping on the couch by myself. But that was great. I mean, we got to see her, Bo-Katan, and the Night Owls, which only Koska had the Night Owl emblem. The other dude, dang it, I didn't get his name. Somebody throw up his name if you got it. I saw him post, like the actor. This is kind of an aside. He posted something that was awesome he talked about how he played with toys, Star Wars toys, when he was a kid, and he never thought this would happen. He was a big Star Wars fan. He came over to America. His family didn't have a lot of money. They were really just trying to make it big, kind of thing, or take your chances really in America, living the American dream, if you will. And he never thought this would happen. And he got the role. Even when he got the role, he didn't know what he was going to be playing. Right, and his favorite, I should have mentioned, he talked about how his favorite character to play around the figure was Boba Fett, which was kind of everybody's, but Boba Fett was his favorite character, and when he finally went in and they showed him his helmet, and that this was what he was going to be wearing, that he was now a Mandalorian, that he broke down and cried, like he was so emotional. Which is, it's an amazing story, and I hope this guy has a good role. He's got a really level head on his shoulders, so I'm pretty excited about it. But anyways, so Bo-Katan shows up, the Night Owls show up, they kick some pretty major butt, and this is where it felt like the Clone Wars. And I know I say that, and I'm wearing my shirt tonight for this reason. I don't have a problem with that. Like there's plenty of moments I think where I compare Star Wars, even the Clone Wars episodes. I think, oh, that's kind of like the movies, or I take the movie moments and I think, oh, that's kind of like Clone Wars, or that's kind of like Rebels. I think that's fine. I don't have a problem with doing this kind of formula. It works. And I love the fact that it's been translated over into live action. But your thoughts?
No, absolutely. I mean, it felt right out of the animation, and it fit so perfectly. And I was kind of stunned a bit, just how the likeness of the costumes and the helmets and everything was just so spot on for what we had visualized animated form, and for that to translate so well live action, it was a real treat. Actually, I thought it was just fantastic that we were able to get this, and we get the different variations of the Mandalorian helmets between the T visor that the Mandalorian and Boba Fett have, and these other ones, which I guess more the Night Owl type of this owl kind of look, with the more almond type of eyes or rounder eyes.
Yeah.
But I love this. I thought it was great because you want to make that. We talked about connected tissue and making these things feel like they're related and that they're relevant to one another. This is one of the more direct and completely right on the money tie-ins that we've had, and really any of the cross pollination of stories. And I mean, Rebels and Clone Wars had a bit of that, but now into live action, this is really kind of a whole new game for us to be able to explore and be able to visualize and see. And that Katie Sackhoff, of course, just looks, I mean, they modeled Bo-Katan off of her, but she just, man, she is Bo-Katan. She is so perfect for the part. And when she took her helmet off, I was like, yes, this is amazing. This is perfect.
Yeah, I was again, this was definitely one of my favorite moments, in the series so far. Just the fact that they did it, right? They brought her in, and we talked about this going into this when we were talking about the, making predictions and speculation about who's going to show up, percentages and all that. This just felt like a character that naturally would show up. And I don't know that we were kind of...
We didn't know if she was alive still. We thought maybe she had to have died of sorts, or went into hiding or faked to death, kind of like what we've seen with Ahsoka and Rex.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, she's going to play a significant role, I think, now.
I think so.
Just based on what she's already told us, and the fact that we know that she's alive and she's the heiress. I mean, they named the stinking
Mhm.
episode after her. So
Right.
yeah, but more when we get to a little bit more here when she starts giving us some background on what's been going on at this point. So we get this moment here where, and by the way, it's Axis Wolves. So thank you for that. That was a name that George Lucas had come up with when he was on set. I think it was one of these things where like, we need a name for that character. And he just said Axis Wolves. Okay, fine. That's it. That's the character's name. But yeah, so this is, the next moment here is where she reaches down and she says, take my hand. And he reaches up, takes her hand, comes out. And now I posted something on social media. If you haven't had a chance to look at it, go see any of our Cantina Cast social media platforms. But it was just a side-by-side comparison through the throwback, I guess the callback to episode 8, which was in season 1, where they finally show him being rescued by Death Watch. And it's the same shot. Same shot, and I'll let you speak the difference because you called it out. But the same shot, he's got his hand reaching out, little baby man, or Din Djarin reaches up, and you can see the hands connecting, and then at that point, he gets rescued. And this was again an intentional scene. The way she shot this was purposeful. It was a throwback to that scene in episode 8. But tell me, you pointed out a great moment there, and maybe you can give us some theory as to why.
Right. Yeah. When you see them side by side, it's very apparent, but they're actually opposite hands. So the hand that is extended to him in season 1 is the opposite hand that Bo-Katan extends to him now. And the interesting kind of theory about that is that, this is what we hear about, a child of the Watch versus whatever Bo-Katan and them consider the actual children of Mandalore, I guess, or the actual residents, or whatever you want to call it, remnants of what is left of Mandalore. And so you have these two factions. And so it's really interesting seeing the difference between them, because we know Death Watch and other Mandalorians have had a very tumultuous and very combative history off and on. And we do learn a little bit about this, and I'm excited to kind of hear your take on it. But I like the visual. I like the parallel that we get the same type of thing, but it's extending the other hand. It's extending the other way of doing things. This is the way, but this is the other way kind of thing, And we don't really understand that until, we almost get a reenactment of the Cobb Vanth scene from a couple episodes ago. And, when, taking the helmet off, where did you get that armor? It was a great segue. I wasn't sure how I felt being such a mirror image of that scene, and actually a mirror image because it's on opposite sides for where the camera work is at.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought it was a really great scene. I thought it was fantastic the way they did it, and the being able to, for him to have the pause, I think, to actually hear what she's talking about was interesting. And I wonder, because he had to see the fighting style. These are Mandalorians, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
They were, you have to see that there's a certain way of doing things. And then it seems like no matter which faction you're a part of, they all have a very similar style. They're all still cut from the same cloth of sorts. Mm-hmm. They just have different garments that they're working from.
Yeah. And that's kind of what Bo-Katan says a little bit later when she says that together, I got the wording here a little bit later. I've got it nailed down. But she basically says, look, we're stronger together kind of thing, right? They've separated us. We're splintered, but they can't stop us if we all kind of come together. And that kind of plays into this my whole theory about what's going on with the show. I may tweak it a little bit after this episode, but yeah, great stuff there. The symbolism between the different hands, that was just awesome. And like you said, it speaks to the different factions and different ways of the way. Kuska, we talked about this. She pulls the baby out finally, and she rips the side off. And thankfully the child's okay, but the baby carrier is now destroyed. So
right.
Yeah, we'll see how that plays out here over the next couple of episodes, if not the rest of the season, and what he does. Maybe he just goes out to I don't know, Walmart. Babies R Us, Yoda's R Us. I don't know, the child's R Us. I don't know. Wherever he goes, he's probably got to pick up something here. But the removal of the mask. So again, this is another one of my favorite moments. Like in terms of what Bryce Dallas Howard did, she filmed it over the left shoulder of Bo-Katan, and you could tell that it was Bo-Katan's shoulder, but it was, the focus was on the Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. And so then she pulls back the focus, and then the helmet comes off. And you can't see this guy's eyes, but you can see it all over. His body language speaks volumes. Like, what in the hell are you doing, right?
Right.
Why are you taking this off, kind of thing. So, and which was great. I did notice too, by the way, when she puts her hand up to take that, she's got whistling birds. She's got the whistling birds on her left hand, but I don't remember her ever using those in Rebels or Clone Wars. So
I didn't catch that. That's a great catch.
Yeah, she's got the same thing on there. But yeah, we'll see. I think Boba Fett does too. So that maybe I think they just gave it a name or gave it a purpose. and it may have had other purposes in the past, but it definitely looked like whistling birds.
Are they that rare then?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe they aren't. But yeah, like he looked like he was going to lose his stuff, right? When he saw that they took the helmets off, and to your point, he goes right back into the mode of when he saw Cobb Vanth. He's like, "What are you doing? What do you do? Where'd you get that armor?" And she says that this armor's been in my family for 3 generations. You don't cover your you guys don't cover your face. You're not Mandalorian. And he does speak almost like he's a primitive. I hate to say that, but he does speak like he's of some kind of old ways, and you can already see it on their faces. They do a great job of not looking at each other, but definitely looking around like, okay, something's weird or something's different about this Mandalorian. And
she uses the word cult, or the word cult comes out, and too. I just want to say that to your point, the way that he says it does come out very cult-like.
Yes, yeah,
right.
Yeah. In fact, it says, "I got the whole line." She says, "I am Bo-Katan of Clan Kryze. I was born on Mandalore and fought in the Purge. I am the last of my line, and you are a child of the Watch. Children of the Watch are a cult of religious zealots that broke away from Mandalorian society. Their goal was to reestablish the ancient way." There's a lot to unpack in there, right? So, we get confirmation, at least for the audience. This is the first. If you're not familiar with her, she kind of tells you, look, that she is the last. She survived the Purge, so we got an answer there, and we talked about the speculation about where she was. She is the last of her line, but there is what was the other? I'm gonna draw a blank on his character, and this is where I'll look to the audience to help out here. There's another person that's in this line, the kid, the boy. I guess he's dead. She says she's the last. Either she doesn't know what happened to him, or he is dead. But whatever. We know that. She says you're a child of the Watch, and it's interesting that they call it the Watch and not Death Watch. Right. My guess is because Darth Maul, although it existed before Darth Maul too. So I don't know. Any thoughts here? I guess I don't have a really good answer as to why they changed the name from Watch to Death Watch, outside of maybe they really aren't deathly at this point because they've been decimated by the Empire or something.
Right. And I imagine Death Watch had a very negative connotation, and it seemed like you can always argue that they're evolving a bit too, right? And that they do want to establish these other ways. And I don't know, it's enough of a change, I guess. And again, it maybe it goes back to that they're not, warmongers exactly, or that type of thing. But so I kind of viewed it as that way of, okay, we're going to modify just a little bit. And I think if we would have said Death Watch to some of the new audiences, it may have been a little bit, it would have taken them out of it. Like, why is Mandalorian part of a group called Death Watch? Mm-hmm. Because that doesn't feel right for this character, especially what we've seen. Why would this be? And so I think some of it was just that. It's just practicality of making sure the audience doesn't get confused by that. Yeah. So shortening it to the Watch made a whole lot of sense story-wise. And then we just have to kind of fill in the blanks behind the scenes to get there on our own. But I like that they brought this back in, though. And I like that they talked about this cult is going back to, I felt vindicated a little bit, I got to be honest with you, that with the ideas of like, yeah, we are establishing the old ways. There's a faction and we want to go back to doing it the old way. Now, we've got 2 different ways of doing it, which is great. And I like that we still had that link. We would question how they would do something like this if they would continue taking the helmets off. And I think now we've even got a path for Din to take his helmet off at some point. Yeah. And that still potentially be acceptable in some places. And if we go back to a comment that there was some rumors going on that, Pedro Pascal was upset on set for not getting enough FaceTime, literally FaceTime. We don't know how true any of that stuff was, but you start to see a path where maybe he would have a little bit more FaceTime if there was any truth to some of that, disgruntledness, which we're not really sure, how much of it was really there. But now it's a path. And I like that we're able to see both sides of it. And we get that congruity with what we saw in Rebels and the Clone Wars, and we didn't undo any of that work.
Yeah. I mean, they did a good job explaining it. I think we did a good job of explaining it. We called it out a months ago or weeks ago, whatever. We talked about it. But yeah, I like the fact that, like you said, if he goes down the path of really bringing all the Mandalorians together, then maybe they do adopt some of the old versus the new, right? Maybe they can't be fixed on the new ways and they can't be fixed on the old ways, and they realize they've got to take the best of all of the ways. Like, we don't even know. There could be other factions that have different practices or, whatever. I'm sure there's some crazy zealot, like truly cult group out there that we'll run into that will be, quote, the bad guys, right? But you got to think about it. They'll probably be pulling a lot of this stuff together from different, from some of these different factions. And if that's the case, then yeah, there's an opportunity here for him to take off his helmet and not have to be, landlocked, I guess, if you will, to always having that on, which would be kind of cool. So yeah, and then we mentioned that that she was in the Purge, and by the way, it was Corky. So thank you, Corky Kreese, the kid.
That's right.
We never got any kind of. We don't know what happened to him really. He was alive the last time we saw him in, I think it was Rebels. So he's still out there, maybe, or if not, then he truly is dead. But we'll take her at her word, face value here, and just say that she is the last one. So, so Mandalorian says that there is only one way, the way of the Mandalore, and that seems very draconic, right? I mean, that is the Mandalore. I mean, you're calling back to when we broke. We talked about the Mandalorian Society, and we got into some history right before the season started. That's one of the things we talked about. There was a one ruler kind of person, and it was called the Mandalore, and it's been male, it's been female over time. But it does sound like that they herald more to that, whereas Bo-Katan and the Kreese are more with a queen, right? Or they've got a parliament. It's not a parliament. What's the I can't remember the term they use, but they had a group of people, right? They had a governing body as well.
Right.
So yeah, somewhere in there you've got some very different perspectives in terms of how Mandalore should be ruled. And when he says the Mandalore, you think, wow, okay, yeah, this guy is really steeped in the old ways.
Well, and the way that she presented it, right, a religious zealot, basically, right?
Yeah.
And it really, truly came out that way. It really felt like almost a deity of sorts that they put on this platform, kind of like what they had with I had actually visions of like the Egyptians and all of the statues they erected in honor of the gods and things like that. And that was the visual I got when I heard these types of things. And then we heard the Mandalore come out, and I thought it was great. It's just such a key difference between having a leader and then having a true embodiment of everything that you believe, rather than someone who just leads you and unifies and things like that. So it's an important difference, and you can see why there would be such a split in the faction when you have that. But it doesn't belittle any of their fierceness or the warrior nature of what it means to be Mandalorian. And we got a lot of that later, and we see that there's really not a whole lot different. And they call him brother in this as well, right? And I think we kind of skipped over that, but when she she pulls him out, she calls him brother, and I think that was really important. I mean, they're still family of sorts, even if they might be on different sides of the same coin.
Yeah, and it makes sense for her to use that term too, more than anybody else, because if you think back to Rebels, right, when Sabine hands the lightsaber over to Bo-Katan, and she's talking, and she gives her really cool speech, and then suddenly all the clans start saying, Clan Ren stands with you, Clan whatever stands with you, and I forget all the names of them now, but they're going around, they're doing it, right? So she's acknowledging that, look, we're all brothers, and she's been there, right? She's been in this position, although she didn't sound like she had the position very long or had the power very long, but she understands the importance of ensuring that everyone understands that there is a brotherhood, regardless of what clan they're from, regardless of what ways and all that stuff. They are true people of Mandalore, and you would think somebody like her who has the leadership skills that she has would be using terminology like that, even if if it seems innocuous. It is important, right? She is letting him know indirectly that you're one of us and we're one of you, and that's why we're here. That's why we're helping you out, even if he is, from the ancient ways kind of thing.
Right.
So the next scene is them taking off, like jettisoning off the ship, and then it blows up, which is a great shot again. I mean, just visually, right? The contrast there and the sun setting and all that blowing up. And of course, Mando had already taken off. He, don't ever talk to me or my child again, and left, kind of thing.
Right.
And he's now on the docks, and I don't want to belabor this because it's a really quick scene, but the Quarren show up. They want to kill. He's like, you killed my brother. I'm going to kill your pet, kind of thing. Suddenly, the Night Owls, right, Inigo Montoya. The Night Owls show up, and we get literally a 1.5 second glimpse of just what they're able to do, and we get a lot more of this a little bit later. But they took out the Quarrens in seconds, which was awesome to see how well they worked together. But yeah, it was quick. I mean, there's not a lot to talk about here other than the fact that those Quarrens all died a horrible death in about 1.5 seconds, but still cool to see.
Yep. I loved it. It's great.
Yeah. So they get to all right. So this is when we get a lot more exposition here, right? They're in the tavern. They get them a drink. They're sitting down and talking. And let me just read this, and I kind of want your thoughts on it. She says, Trask is a black market port. They're staging weapons that have been bought and sold with the plunders of our planet. We're seizing those weapons and using them to retake our homeworld. Once we've done that, we'll seat a new Mandalore at the throne. Now, she doesn't say, I will seat myself at the throne.
Yeah.
But that's, it's interesting word choice. Later on, she kind of says something maybe counter to that. But it is interesting that they're continuing to plunder things from Mandalore. And then let me read the rest of this real quick. So the Amanda says that planet is cursed. Anyone who goes there dies. Once the Empire knew they couldn't control it, they made sure no one else could either. That's significant to me. Like, it says a lot. I don't have a lot of answers, but it says a lot. And then she says, don't believe everything you hear. Our enemies want to separate us, but Mandalorians are stronger together. Like, it's a small little conversation, but man, there's a lot of crap in there, right? There's a lot to think about and
Right.
what that puts the state of Mandalore in. But give me your thoughts on any of that right now, and I'll.
Yeah, what was challenging about it is that each one of those kind of 3 sections you laid out there are a bit disjointed, and they don't necessarily ever relate. I mean, with the Empire, and to kind of your second point, we know they have a lot of a scorched earth type of policy, right? I mean, they blew planets up, for goodness sake. So we know that if they don't get what they want, they will just completely burn everything to the ground, and they will take every resource they can. We saw this in the Ahsoka novel as well, until it is bled dry, and that you will not want to habitate there. And we've seen it countless times, and it's not out of character for the Empire to be able to do this. Now, the comment about seating a new Mandalore, though, and taking it back, that was curious. And I'm wondering if she was just playing it cool for this moment. She didn't want to give any kind of indication of who she was. I mean, she certainly didn't. And clearly he didn't recognize the family at all.
Right.
So I thought, I viewed that more as she was just, keeping that on the down low for right now. You don't need to know this. But it was curious, though, that she did talk about seeing a new Mandalore, because that it's a little out of sync with what we've seen, unless she would be viewed as the Mandalore. So if she's the rightful heir, would she be the Mandalore at that point?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe the answer is yes. I'm not sure.
I think the answer is yes. I think she's in a weird position, though. Like, and I don't want to wax a lot of history here, because we could certainly, and maybe we need to do a show. I joked that I was going to do a Who is Bo-Katan kind of one-off episode, even if it's like 15 minutes, just to get everybody caught up. So without getting into the Bo-Katan breakdown and what happened on Mandalore and Rebels, she was in a very different position than she is right now, right? Mandalore was not in a state of, quote, a curse, right? Anyone that goes to this planet dies. They're the Empire. They knew they couldn't control it, so they made sure no one else could either. That puts I've got a lot of theories as to what possibly could be happening on Mandalore, but she's not in a position where she can just go, I've got the Darksaber, everybody come back, we're all gonna, I'm gonna rule all of you again. She's got a lot of work to do at this point, because they are splintered, and and you've got to take Mandalore back from whatever's happening there. So maybe she's just playing it safe. Like, okay, if it's not me, someone still needs to be the rightful ruler of Mandalore. And I think if they go back to where we were in Star Wars Rebels, I think there is an opportunity to have a single person as the Mandalore. It's a little different than the ancient ways, that kind of Mandalore, but I think at least at the time in Rebels, all of those clans were okay with somebody ruling over them, right, as a true Mandalore. And I don't know if that's the case anymore. I think there may be some time that needs to pass before they can all get there again. But
right. And what's interesting, though, is that this is the first time we've heard about uniting the clans directly, or any kind of interest in really working with another clan.
Yeah.
Right. The whole idea we had of the coverts seemed like at one point we didn't think there was any kind of connected tissue. And then we say, okay, maybe there is a bit of a dotted line or string that's attaching all of them, that they at least stay in contact with one another. But we've really not seen that to be the case either. This trek we've been on has been non-Mandalorians pointing us to Mandalorians, effectively, or semi-Mandalorians.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to hear that she's interested in it. And now the question is, like, how many of the other clans are actually interested in this, or how many are working in their own, silo of what their interests are. So you really have a whole lot more questions about what is really the state of Mandalorians, and just not only the cultural aspect of it. We've got this kind of religious, sect difference of it all, but just ideologically, how do they stand? How do each one of the coverts, are there these bigger groups where they have different ideas and they are at each other's throats as much as they are with their enemy in the Empire?
Yeah.
And we've seen them come together when they have to. but now we don't really even understand what the ideology of the Mandalorians for their planet or for ruling themselves or whatever that looks like. And we know Satine had a really hard time with trying to manage Mandalore as it was from a higher
Pacifist.
society. Yeah, more of a caste society of just this, upper, we should rise above our history of our warriorism and then things like that and be able to do more of it, when clearly that's what it was. And we had a lot of those questions back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and she was trying to do, like, she was coming in with this whole pacifist movement, right? That didn't last very
Right.
long at all things considered. So that was a whole mess in itself. But yeah, no, I think you make great points. Like, I really, we just don't know enough about where they are. My guess is it's kind of chaotic right now, which I think would be expected given what they've gone through. But the one question that the question of what state is Mandalore? Because again, they're plundering weapons from Mandalore, and they're selling these things, using them, whatever, to fight. I would assume like the New Republic or pirates or whoever, right? They're manning these folks with these weapons, and Bo-Katan, Night Owls, this group, they're trying to take these weapons and use them to take back Mandalore. So then, what state is Mandalore in? Like, are there wars that are happening on Mandalore between Mandalorians and other factions, pirates, whatever? And I made this joke, and I'm like, the more I think about it, like, anything's on the table at this point. It sounds kind of silly, but, Mandalore used to be overrun with mythosaurs, right? Have they just found a way to unleash these things again, and they're just rampant running around, and so Mandalore is back to where it was thousands of years ago, where it's just uninhabitable because it's overrun with mythosaurs again. Maybe that's the way we get to see mythosaurs in this series. But whatever it is, and I haven't spent too much time on it. I would love to hear other people's thoughts and theories as to what is going on Mandalore. We just know that right now, at least from Din's perspective, that thing's a curse, right? The planet's a curse. You can't go there. You're just going to die if you go there. And there's something is going on. And the only way to overtake that, at least from Bo-Katan's perspective, is to bring everybody together, bring all the Mandalorians back together, because only then can they actually retake Mandalore.
Right. And don't believe everything you hear. So clearly something's going on. I think there's another question here too, Albert, of what exactly is the Empire doing right now? I mean, we really don't have an idea of what the Empire even is right now. And we questioned this early on with in season 1, but we're gonna have to revisit this soon again, because we had Moff Gideon show up a little bit later, but we just don't know. I mean, they're stealing weapons, or they're making weapons and they're hauling them off, and this is basically a black market type of situation. There's an intermediary type of thing going on. But what is the Empire actually up to? Like the Empire. This isn't First Order, and we don't even know if this is the prelude to the First Order. It kind of doesn't feel like it of sorts, but these guys are still in their Empire, their Imperial uniforms, and adhering to the doctrines of the Empire. So it's very curious, like, where the Empire, what exactly are they doing? Who is leading them? Is it Moff Gideon? And what is it they're trying to do? Are they just trying to hold on to this little nugget of power that they think they have, but they don't seem to? I don't know. People don't really seem all that scared of the Empire, but yet here they are, still in some level of power and control.
Yeah, I mean, what we know from the Aftermath series is that they were still trying to kind of keep it together, right? There was a core group. There was a quote fleet, although it was dismembered in a lot of different ways, right? And there were certain people that were in power, that were in charge of this. We think of Ray Sloan and a number of other folks that were still running. We don't know what their fate is. I'd love for them to come back and show up in some way here. And not her particularly, but just, any of those characters.
Right.
But you got to think, if they're going around with the slogan of "Long live the Empire," then it may just be a parallel of two, or a parallel of the Mandalores, right? You may have a core group that's still loyal, that are loyalists to the Empire's ways and Palpatine, and that becomes what eventually becomes the First Order, right? You probably have that group in there. Then you probably have warlords, people that were Moffs or high, admirals, or some really big power base. They've had all their people. They're so separated from what's going on here in the core worlds that they've decided to just kind of like, I'm going to be my own Moff or whatever, and I'm going to have my own contingents of stormtroopers. I'm going to do whatever I want, right? From the kind of like that warlord mentality perspective. My guess is because there is no really one person that's unifying them all, and they're fighting all these fronts they're fighting different fronts from different people, whether it's, again, the New Republic, it could be the pirates and scoundrels and everything else. I mean, it just feels like they would be in disarray and they would be scattered around, much like the Mandalorian. So I think it's probably some combination thereof of where we have the Empire. I think if anything, they'll probably latch. I think what we're seeing right now, at least with this group that we saw for the Empire, I think these guys are the loyalists. I think Moff Gideon is the loyalist only because, and I wouldn't have thought that honestly until he says, "Long live the Empire." Like, to me, that was significant. It did say, okay, I'm still loyal. I'm a loyalist to Palpatine. I'm a loyalist to Vader and what that was about. We may not be who we are anymore, but we're going to pick the pieces up and kind of try to keep that going here if we can.
Right.
So, all right. So where were we here? So we had the whole talking about Mandalore, what's going on there. He says that's not part of his plan, and not part of his plan meaning I'm not really part of your revolution here. I'm only kind of thing, right? It's Han Solo moment.
That's only in it for the money.
He's in it for the money. And I don't think he buys into this. And so, again, I have this whole theory about him becoming the Mandalore at some point in the series. If not, that's what happens at the very end of the series. But I don't think right now, he's right. I take him at face value. I don't think he really cares. Like, he just wants to get the child to a Jedi and get back to his ways of being a bounty hunter, right? That's what he's used to. That's what he's comfortable doing. So he's really, I don't really want to do this, but, she tells him, look, if you want to know where the Jedi is, you're going to have to help me. And so he decides to kind of go in with them on the plan.
Right.
And he tells him, she says he's asking for help by way of the creed, which I thought was kind of cool, right? Yeah. Like, again, like he's speaking now to the fact that, okay, I may not be one of you guys, but we're all true Mandalores and we all follow the creed and believe in the creed. And because of that, I need your help.
Do you think that meant anything to Bo in the group? We really didn't get any indication that it had any kind of effect on them.
And so the skeptic in me says no, that it didn't, because they don't really, like, even in like Clone Wars stuff, they don't really talk about the creed that much, right? Even Clone Wars, Rebels, it didn't come up a whole lot. We know it's there. It has been canonized, so it's not really a question. But yeah, I mean, maybe indirectly they just believe it. It's just kind of one of like, I get it. I don't need you to repeat, line for line what it is. I understand what you're saying, brother, kind of thing. I'll do what you're talking about. But did it mean anything? I don't know. Like, part of me thinks Bo-Katan is just in a moment. She's just in survival mode right now, right? And whatever it's going to take at this point. Like, she doesn't really give him a choice later on. Like, she's just calling the shots, saying, "I'm in charge here. You're going to do what I want you to do." It's almost kind of like a rebels mentality, right? Or Saw Gerrera kind of mentality. Not to say that they're, terrorists, but they're doing whatever they need to do to take down the Empire, because their prime objective is to bring back or retake Mandalore at that point. Okay, so he says we get to the Gozanti freighter. We get to see them. They're talking about the plan in terms of it can't take off until it leaves the harbor. And then that next scene, and I'm just kind of jumping over because really not a whole lot there, but that next scene where we see the freighter taking off the back of the engines, and then over the top of the shot, the Mandalorians, all four of them come in, kind of like F-15s, right, out of like some air show or something. Like, oh, that's kind of a cool effect they got going on with the hand there.
Did you get a visual when the freighter was going off with the heat? Did you get a visual of another movie?
Like Top Gun?
Top Gun, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was great stuff. Like, I loved that shot. And I wish she would have held that shot longer. Like, they come in from the top of the shot, and they're only on for about a second, really. Yeah. I wish she would have just held it just a little bit longer so we could see them truly flying, coming up on behind the freighter there. But anyways, great stuff there. This is and we skipped over the frogs piece where he goes back and knocks on the door and drops the kid off at the in-home daycare there. But I thought for sure, like I'm sure most people did at this point, like he's gonna eat those babies. Like, he's gonna eat them. He's gonna get busted. I love that he told him, he's like, I don't want any monkey business or whatever. And he goes, exactly what I'm talking about, kind of thing. Like, don't eat her kids.
Right.
Then
one hatches.
Yeah, then one hatches. And that face of his face when he's like looking around. Oh, it's great stuff for Baby Yoda there. But yeah, so also the other thing too we didn't really touch on the music in this episode was phenomenal.
Oh my God. Yeah, when the ship was taken off.
Yes. It's got like this rock kind of heavy guitar riff going on there for a little bit. And again, like these are sounds that I would never think would work in Star Wars because we're just not used to them, and they do. I think they work amazingly well. So,
Well, and the thing I had was like, this is kind of what I expected from Solo. Like I really, the very first trailer or teaser we got for Solo had that real kind of westerny type of vibe, guitars and whatnot, and we really thought that, and then we have it here. But I was like, man, this is what we thought we were going to get with Solo, and now we're finally getting it in this moment. And I thought it was just such a perfect use of the. I mean, it's a little out of character for the series, but for the scene, I thought it was amazingly perfect. It was that dirty, grungy, metallic kind of distorted sound, and it was perfect for the scene, and it really gave it a completely different element than if they would use the regular traditional score.
Yeah. And we got it earlier. We kind of glossed over it when they came and saved the Mandalorian and the child on the ship. It played there just briefly, but we got it in a pretty big amount here throughout the rest of this episode as we're on. So hopefully stick with that. Like, I love the fact that when we start seeing these guys again or other Mandalorians, this is the sound that we would expect. It's gonna be it's pretty cool. Yeah, and then them coming in and the way they took out the stormtroopers. Now, granted, they're stormtroopers, so really not a whole lot of, doesn't take a lot of effort, but the use of her grabbing, like, what's her name?
Bear hug around him.
Costco, yeah, she bear hugs him and then flies off with him. And then we see this poor sap hit the windshield, which I thought was really good.
I was waiting for the wipers.
Right, to scrape it off and the spray to clean it off there. But yeah, that was pretty good. Yeah, and then we talked already about, and I forget the actor's name now. The one that played, he was in Lost. He was also in Deadwood. Thank you. I forgot, somebody in Discord brought that up when we were talking about it that morning, that he was in Discord as well. He's great. He does these little roles like this that he's just phenomenal at. But the fact that we had somebody without a British accent that was in the Empire, for those of us that have been long time Star Wars fans, that's a kind of a big deal. Right. It makes sense, right? They won't always all have that. We get inside, and this battle is just, again, breakneck speed, right? The music is going. The Mandalorians are like working like they've been. What's that?
Yeah. Just ripping through everything, yeah.
Yeah, and like they've been together forever, right? And so this is all great stuff. She makes a comment a little bit later about imagine a division of us with these weapons. Right. That's just so cool. Like, even, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, people that have been Mandalorian fans for a long time have known this, but we're seeing this on TV, and that's the thing I keep thinking to myself. It's like, I can't believe I'm watching this. I'm seeing like Bo-Katan, and I'm seeing Mandalorians fly and attack and do. We've never seen this in live action, and we saw it in Clone Wars, but it's just not the same thing. There is something more magical about it, at least for me, in my perspective here. Seeing Mandalorians fight stormtroopers like this and working like a well-oiled machine and playing off of each other, and just the music and the way it was shot, and they're walking around, they're just strutting their stuff in there in that thing. They look like a bunch of Billy Badasses the entire time that they're taking out the stormtroopers.
All right, and Terrence in the chat, he said, does it seem like the Mando was a step behind the others during the battle? And I think I had that impression at first too, but when I watched it again before we came on, he's actually covering the rear. So I thought the same thing when they first go into the cargo hold, or not the cargo, when they just go into the ship the first time. It did look like he was like looking around like, what is going on? Like, what did you guys do? And and what am I involved with? And it kind of seems that way a couple of times, but he was covering the rear, I think, on that one. But there was another moment where you do get a bit of an impression of like he's a little bit lost or learning how these guys work together. But I think, to Albert's point, when we get to the chaos, then all of a sudden we've got this machine that seems to be working. Although he was not taking leadership, he wasn't asserting himself as a leader at all. He was very much deferring to Bo and even the other two to just lead the charge, and it's their show, and being respectful of what they wanted to do here, and not doing it himself.
Yeah, and I think if you've, I'm not going to say if you've ever been in combat, because I don't know what that's like, but you think about put yourself in a position where you are pretty comfortable with your expertise, right? And suddenly you're put up with other people that are as good, if not better than you in these types of situations. Like, any level-headed person would probably just want to play it out and not try to assert themselves and just figure out, where's my place? Where am I needed right now? These guys have obviously been working with each other for a very long time, right? I'm not going to go jump into the mix and say, okay, no, we're doing things my way. Albert would go, let me see how they're working and figure out where I'm needed. Where do you guys need me to go? Right? You guys obviously have been doing this a lot longer. You tell me where you need me. If you want me to be the leader, fine. If you want me to watch the back, I'll watch the back. but he's probably doing this just to learn more about them and trying to get a feel for how they work together before he, and then he has his moment, right? He does have his moment later on where he finally figures out, okay, no one's going to step up. I'm used to doing this. I'm willing to do it, and does it. So it was good. I think it was, again, it plays to his strengths. I think it says a lot about the Mandalorian and where he is. I feel like he is a very level-headed person when it comes to stuff like that, or just stuff in general, really.
I did have a bit of a callback to Rex and Bad Batch, though, too, of that dynamic where they struggled a little bit, and it wasn't exactly like that at all, and really not a whole lot like it, but it did remind me of those couple of episodes where Rex is really struggling to understand how to work better with this group that's just got they've done it forever, like you said, and you're trying to insert yourself into somebody else's group and trying to find your place.
Stephanie nailed it. This had such a Mean Girl vibe. The plastics walking down the hallway and the new girl floundering behind him. That's exactly right. If you've ever seen Mean Girls, that's exactly right. I love that. Thank you, Steph. That was awesome. Totally relate to that one. Okay, so the what was his rank? Was he a captain? He wasn't. He might have been an admiral. I don't know. Whatever he was. Tells them that they need to climb now, right? Get out of here. We don't have time for this because they're taking over the ship pretty quick here, right. And so they want to get to and the reason why they don't really explicitly say this is, but he's trying to get to the rest of the fleet because he needs reinforcements. He knows these stormtroopers aren't going to be holding the Mandalorians off, and they're going to eventually take the bridge. So he's got to get to the fleet in order for them to have true reinforcements. Otherwise, they're going to lose. We got the use of the heat vision. That was really cool again. Working together, they all have the same kind of tech, which was kind of cool to see them use. And he says they got to meet up with the fleet. The question was which fleet? Like, is it? And I know we've already touched on this really, but it was really about is this the last remnants of the Empire? Is it Moff Gideon's fleet itself? And we got the answer to that because it sounds like he did check in with Moff Gideon when all things are kind of going south for them. We also got the close the blast doors moment from episode 4.
Like they lifted it right out of it too.
It's like always at the blast doors, right? And he's like, all of them, shut them all down. Like, all the doors, shut them all down. This is, we trapped them where in the cargo command center, cargo command area, and then we get the jet where they jettison them out.
Control center. Yeah,
it was all good stuff. Like I really enjoyed all that. Like it was. There was a moment of levity there for sure, and how that and it speaks to the bumbling idiots that the Empire are. Even now, they still are making some really bad decisions and choices. So it was all good stuff there.
So what about some of the stormtrooper lines that were pretty much lifted right out of A New Hope? Did you have an issue with those? It was like, oh gosh, I think it's when they're in the detention block. Like, oh gosh, now I can't remember the stupid line, but it was like, hey there, type of deal. Oh, man.
TK-41 lines, or are you talking about like the?
They were like, stop him, or oh God, never mind.
No. I know what you're talking about. No, I don't have a problem. Like that to me, like they do that because it just, if nothing, it reinforces that nothing's changed, right? It's a way for you to reconnect with the stormtroopers. Like, oh, yep, that's them. I hear it. Right. I don't feel like and I know where you're coming from because I know people are have feedback around this. Well, it's just. They're regurgitating stuff, lines and all that. It's not. It's just, that's what we're comfortable with, and we would expect that, right? If they did something different, then it feels a little bit alien. We want them to be in character, right? And I think that is in character for a stormtrooper to say something like that or say some of those same things. So let's see, where are we? So we get to, she talks about how they finally, she makes contact and says, we're here, or what does she say? What was the line? I can't remember. She takes a little comm link, and she's talking to the dude up at the front there, and basically tells him that, hey, I'll make some tea, I'll be up there in a minute kind of thing, right? She's just messing with him at this point. And this is where the Mandalorian finds out that, look, they're not just trying to take the weapons back, which was the original deal, but they actually want to take the whole ship now at this point, because she says, we're going to need this ship for the battle. And this is very, this echoes Empire Strikes Back, right? I'm altering the deal. Pray I don't alter it any further, right? This is her going Vader on him and saying they're going to change it. But she's calling the shots here. Like, she makes it very clear that, she still has what he needs, and that's the information to the Jedi, and he's going to have to help out and do it. But he says, this is not what I signed up for. But and to some extent, he's freaking out, too, because he's like, I can't go into hyperspace with you guys. I've got a child sitting down here with a bunch of frog people, and that's a risk for a lot of different reasons. But yeah, this is him like trying to back out of this plan. Like this is not what he signed up for.
Right. And I mean, and she basically taunts him with, "This is the way." I mean, the sarcasm and the tone that she has, and it was just dripping with something. And I was trying to figure out exactly what it was she was trying to get across to him of throwing it in his face. And it almost seemed like they didn't believe in "this is the way" type of thing when she said it, and that she was just making fun of him effectively.
I think so. I got that. I get that. I do. I wonder if it's, again, I wonder if it's more like the Creed thing we talked about where, yeah, this is the way is a thing. We used to say that a long time ago. I get it. Yeah, I'm with you. Because she then, at the very end, she does say it, and she does come across as sincere, right? At the very end when she says, "This is the way." So I think it's like, I think she's using it for her purposes, and it probably doesn't mean as much to her. Like, he's so like a zealot, right? I hate to say that, but he's such a cult member. It means something very different to him. There's something he's very passionate about it. And with her, it's kind of like, yeah, this is the way, I get it. And it does mean something, but maybe it doesn't mean exactly the same because she's not cut from, like you said, she's not cut from that same cloth. Or, well, she is, but she's just a little different, right? They don't adhere to all that stuff as strictly.
Yeah, and that's what I took from him is that they probably don't follow it really at all. I mean, we've never heard them say it clearly. So for continuity purposes and congruity, I could see where they could actually see that, they don't believe in that. They don't believe that this is the way, this old doctrine of sorts that they're trying to reestablish, and they don't believe that. They have a different way. Yeah. And I do like that we get to a different point where we can speculate a little bit about why she, has more of a genuine extension of that back, that there is something that they can do, differently and together. And maybe we'll come back and talk a little bit about clan unifications when we get to that line.
Yeah. She tells him there's something I need if I am to rule. This is where she says, says, there is something I need if I am to rule Mandalore. Something that was once mine. They know where it is, and soon will I. Now, of course, she's going to tell us that what it is later on, that it's the Darksaber. But
serious business, though. Jeez.
Yeah, no joke. She is at least declaring at this point that she wants to she is going to be the leader. So this is a difference from her saying that, hey, we'll put somebody in position to rule Mandalore once again. Now she's saying that person is me, and I am the rightful person. And she is, right? She is the heiress to the throne. We know that. It's just why the title is called it what it is. But let's talk about taking back the Darksaber. So I gathered that she knows Gideon very well, right? Yeah. So at some point, either she was fighting with Gideon one-on-one, or his forces were attacking her, and that's how they got the Darksaber. If they got the Darksaber, then I have questions about, like, how did she get out? Was she imprisoned? Right? They wouldn't just take it from her. I mean, it seems like they would capture her, take it from her, and so there had to have been some kind of prison break or something. And this kind of seems very similar to the Clone Wars because some of this stuff happened in the Clone Wars. But yeah, I'm drawing all kinds of conclusions here. Or at least I'm making some assumptions at this point that she was captured. That's how they got the Darksaber from her. And then let's say she gets it back, right? The question of, does Mando take the sword from Gideon and return it to Bo-Katan? Like, we know from the Esposito's interview, right before in Entertainment Weekly or wherever it was, he talked about how he was going to go fisticuffs with the Mandalorian. So You've got the Mandalorian now fighting Moff Gideon with the Darksaber. Let's say he does get it back. Is he going to be the person that rightfully returns it to Bo-Katan, or does he keep it for himself? I think all of this kind of plays into whatever theories you may have in terms of what the Mandalorian wants to do. But yeah, and then another question, do they meet up with, does Bo-Katan come back in the series? I'm jumping ahead to some of this stuff later on, but does Bo-Katan come back in the series? And is it her and Mando that take on Gideon? And then that kind of alleviates the problem of him having to pass the Darksaber on. She just takes it and runs back to Mandalore and does whatever she needs to do.
Right, yeah. I like the idea that the Mandalorians start to unite against Moff Gideon. It's not just the Mandalorian. He might be the one having the one-on-one battle. But I think, yeah, let's go back and look at the, like the Boba Fett armor. He makes a deal with Cobb Vanth to get the armor to return it to its ancestral owners. This armor belongs with us. Mm-hmm. I need to retrieve that. So if he were to get the same type of thing, and the weapon in this case, the Darksaber, I think very much it would be like you were the rightful owner of it, and he would hand it over without question. I don't think there would be any kind of power struggle, provided that Bo-Katan survives. Right? I mean, we can probably debate whether or not we still think she lives or dies. In the series, I think she probably lives, but I like the idea that he would hand it over, because I think we've seen it that he had to deal with Cobb Vanth. He got the armor back, is where it belongs, and he would extend the same kind of courtesy to, yes, this really is yours, because it doesn't sound like they have any. Well, he doesn't even know about the Darksaber, so he has no legitimate claim to it, of course. But we don't know what the armorer might know about it either. So I'm curious if we'll get some sort of difference here from a different perspective, like the armorer. If we come across her again when they go back to Navarro, I would really love to be able to hear what differences of opinion or differences of viewpoints they have when it comes to the weapon, and whether or not that truly represents the Mandalore.
Yeah. I can see some pretty good conflict there coming. Like, the armorer saying, no, this is what needs to happen with the weapon, and Bo-Katan saying, well, that was a long time ago, Missy, and this is how things are these days, and I'm the one in charge, kind of thing. Like that's some good drama that I would expect to kind of play out of it if we get there.
Mando's stuck right in the middle of it too.
I know, right? He's just like, I don't know what to do here, guys. There's we get finally make contact with Gideon, and he says that there's another pirate hijacking. So again, make an assumption here that they've been doing this for quite a while. At least this group has been doing this quite a while. He calls them pirates, though. They never refer to them as Mandos. Like, it's almost like
they do when they said they're Mandalorians. So I think that finally came across.
Yeah. No, that's
first time. But yeah, definitely the first time they've recognized it.
Yeah. But I wonder why wouldn't he have told? Why did he not tell Moff Gideon that they were Mandalorians? Why did he just call them pirates?
I don't know. I'm kind of wondering whether or not he had to clearly know what a Mandalorian was. It sounds like he knew.
I don't know. It's some of it's a little bit rhetorical, I think, and it may be nothing. The only thing I could think of was they don't like to acknowledge them. Like they're not even worthy of being like acknowledged as Mandalorians. So they kind of use this derogatory term of pirates, right, to kind of demeanor them in some way. I don't know. It was bizarre that the choice of word he used was pirates, and never just said, "Oh, we're being attacked by Mandalorians again." But whatever. He says they've attacked other vessels. He says, "You know what to do. Long live the Empire." This felt very Hydra from the Marvel Universe, right? Where Hell Hydra kind of thing. And so, but all of that comes. To me, it speaks to Operation Cinder still, right? They see this. To me, this seems like a subset of rules or practices that are all under, Palpatine's final orders in Operation Cinder that says if you ever are about to get, what do you call it? Not attacked, but if you're about to get captured, right? You can think of the word. If you were to be captured, you kill yourself and everybody else first, and if you can't, and then use the little thing in your teeth. Which again, that was very Hydra. That happens all the time in Hydra. If they're going to get captured, they bite down on the cyanide thing, and that kills them. Kind of cool. This was electricity. It looked like Palpatine's electricity, which is like, oh, that's kind of neat. But yeah, do you think this is all stuff from Operation Cinder, or do you think these are just new orders that have come down from somebody like Moff Gideon or somebody even higher, like Snoke, or somebody that says this is the new plan or the new MO?
I was trying to understand why they would. I mean, could they have delayed long enough to be able to get an atmosphere? Like, why was it a loss? Like, why did Gideon just assume or say this was a complete loss and they weren't going to? It wasn't worth it, and they should just crash and burn. I still don't quite understand that, because what are 4 Mandalorians going to do against an entire fleet type of thing?
Well, yeah, so I think what he was saying, I think what they were saying is they were going to, so they wanted to take the ship over. Yes, they would get out into space, but I don't think they were going to go try to engage the Imperials. They were going to take that ship and get out of here and leave them together, right? So from Gideon's perspective is, I don't want them to have those weapons, and I don't want them to have that ship. So plunge this thing down and kill everybody, including yourselves, into the water. We'll forget whatever. We'll wipe out the losses. It's totally fine, but don't let them get away with the ship is all he was doing. So from that perspective, we
didn't have confidence they could actually stop them once they got out of atmosphere.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was like, you got all these resources, you got a whole fleet up there apparently. Why wouldn't you stop them there? And I don't know, tractor beams. I don't know if they've got those on Star Destroyers or whatnot these days, but it just struck me as a little bit odd of why they would write it off. And maybe it was, again, in the grand scheme of things, maybe just one ship, not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
We'll take out a few Mandalorians. It's worth it.
Yeah. There's, we cut over to the bridge where they're kind of being held up, and we kind of skipped over this part, but that moment where the Mando has his moment here where they're taking a bunch of heavy fire. It's really hard to hear what's happening in the dialogue wise. So if you turn the subtitles on, you can see that there's he says there's like 6 to 8 of them, and I think one of them says, I think it's Wove says there 2 of them have heavy repeat blasters, right? So the firepower, and this is kind of what we talked about with like the Jedi and how you would overcome a Jedi with pure firepower, even though they could deflect blaster bolts. There was just too much. And my only problem with this scene is like I really wish Mando would have taken some damage. And now maybe he has, and we haven't seen it yet. But I would have liked to see him get hurt. Now, not mortally wounded or anything, but that was a lot of firepower, and that it almost feels like it's OP, and that's a stupid gamer term. I apologize in advance, but it feels a little bit overpowered that somebody that could have like the Mandalorian armor and be able to rush an onslaught of blaster bolts and not have anything wrong with him, and he didn't. At least what we saw. I was thinking, oh, he took a couple shots, maybe in the arm. He's going to be bleeding. He's going to be, hurt, wounded, pretty bad. No, he seems like no big deal. In fact, he just shrugs it off. He gets up and it's like, let's go. Right?
Yeah.
And then later on, we see him, and when he goes and picks up his baby from the daycare, he looks fine. Like there's nothing wrong with him. Even when he's on the ship, there's nothing wrong with him. So I don't know. He may have some wounds, and maybe in the next episode, when we cut over to see where they're at, he's tending to those wounds. I think would be a kind of a cool shot. But he really seemed like he was unfazed. It seemed like it was just more of a nuisance more than anything. Which I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, well, I'm right there with you. I assume when he went down that he finally took a shot. I mean, there's a lot of squishy points in between the armor, right? Yeah. There's plenty of places, and he was kind of hunching a little bit, shoulders making himself a little bit smaller, more compact with the upper body, but still, I mean, like you said, heavy repeating blasters. These things are just spray and pray, and you're gonna find the soft spots. And I'm with you. Take a couple of shots to where you take one, he's stumbling a little bit, then takes out a leg, and then he goes down, and then throws the charges in there and does it. But then he has to kind of limp to the finish line of sorts. And I think that would have been more impactful that way. And they could have patched him up before the end of the episode and not really had any worse for wear. But I agree. It was just very much kind of took you out of the moment of like, okay, he's just, like you said, he's got like a force field around him. He's just fine. And Beskar, just attracts blaster bolts, I guess, instead of them finding their true mark.
Yeah.
But no, I'm with you. It would have been more impactful had he taken a couple of shots. Yes. I mean, they could still have him going down the hall and it taking a while, but I mean, you got to take something. Come on, guys.
Right. I mean, it was cool. I think the key takeaway from that scene is what Bo-Katan says later about, your bravery hasn't gone on unnoticed, right? Or whatever.
Won't be forgotten, right?
Won't be forgotten is what she says, right? And this is, we talked about this in the last episode where like he's doing these good deeds, and I think these are all going to continue to pay off. I think that's kind of part of the formula for this series. To what extent, I don't know yet, but it's good to see that people are taking note of who he is and some of the characteristics and personality traits that he has, which I think all play into my theory of him being a true leader at some point. But again, more on that later. And so they get to the bridge. They stop the ship from going down. He kills himself, and then we get the big moment here, right? He's about ready to go, and she's like, "Hey, the offer still stands." He's like, "No, I got to get back to my kid. And I just need to know where the Jedi is." She says, "Take the foundling to the city of Caladan on the forest planet of Corvus. There you will find Ahsoka Tano." I squealed like a pig at this point. This is like the third time in the episode where I squealed. "Tell her you were sent by Bo-Katan, and thank you. Your bravery will not be forgotten. This is the way." And with that, he kind of jumps out and takes off. So Caladan, never heard of it. I didn't ring a bell when I heard it. Looked it up. There's nothing really out there about it. So this is a whole new planet, which is cool. I actually like that a lot more than saying, "Oh, go to Forest Moon of Endor." Like, oh, great, here we go to Endor, kind of thing.
Right.
That was cool. Corvus, though, I was like, oh, I know I've heard Corvus before, and I went out and looked, but that was like the ship from what was the video game? Came out last 2 years ago. Battlefront 2.
All in Order?
No, Battlefront 2. Yeah. Okay. Like there was a ship. The Corvus was like one of the main ships, so if not the main ship that you flew around in with Iden Versio. So I don't. Maybe they just repurpose. Star Wars does this a lot. They just repurpose the names for different things. So, but nothing. Neither one of those things had ever really been canonized yet. So these are new pronouns. I don't know. Again, I'm pretty excited that we're going to see Bo-Katan here very soon. Or not, sorry, Ahsoka Tano, that we're going to see her very soon. We predicted as much, and we knew that she was in there, but it feels like we're really close to seeing her now.
Right. Yeah, that was an exciting scene. It was great to, of course, it kind of reminded you of the Han Solo's offer to Luke at the end of A New Hope as well.
Yeah.
You're pretty good in the fight. Why don't you come with us? And So it was kind of fun to have that. They want him to join. They clearly see the value in it, and they don't have a problem with him. And again, he proved his valor and proved his worth. And
Right.
again, they're all Mandalorians. Once they see it in one another, they're like brothers and sisters again. They can fight, but they're going to do what's right together.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was great. I like the way that she said, "This is the way." And again, it was a kind of that olive branch of sorts, I think, as well, in saying that yes, this is the Mandalorian way, not necessarily this is your way or my way. This is how we operate. This is how our culture and how our people do things. We help one another and we recognize each other whenever we do something that is that's important. And I think that line is really important though, because if there really are two sects, and then if he comes into contact with the others, you need that type of vetting to happen in order for that connection to happen, so that they don't, all of a sudden just want to, shoot him on sight type of thing.
Yeah.
And again, there could be that kind of conflict between the two and between the different sides of this thing, and it could be escalating more than we realize.
Yep. All right. So he takes off. He jumps out with the jetpack, goes up, picks up his kid, and gets back to the docks. And this is where you get the funny moment where, for 1,000 credits, he got his ship put together with netting and ropes and all kinds of bizarre. Yeah, unbelievable, I think is what he says when he's in there. And I said this looks like the decor from Long John Silver circa 1985. The landing gear doesn't come up the right way. Like there's pieces falling out from underneath it. This isn't the first time too. Like this is like the third time now, I think, that something has fallen off the ship.
Right.
And he finally gets in. He says, "I finally know where I'm taking you, but it's going to be a bumpy ride." And I skipped over the part where the baby eats the little thing, which I think they were trying to play that up like that thing was going to eat the baby Yoda, like that little squid thing. But the entire time I'm thinking he's going to eat that thing. Like he's just waiting for it to get closer because his arms aren't long enough to reach it.
Right.
But at that point it takes off in hyperspace, and we see that one last piece floating of junk, piece of the ship floating there in the back. Right. So that's kind of how it ends. So my thought around the ship, just real quick on that piece, like I can't see him going straight to to Ahsoka. I have a feeling he's going to stop and pick up Grief Karga and Cara Dune. Like if he doesn't stop and pick them up, I think he might go in for repairs. Like I think this thing is in such bad shape that he's got to go somewhere to get it repaired so it actually can make the entire voyage. I don't anticipate it going. That's other than I just don't think it's in good shape. But what are your thoughts? Do you think he's going to go straight to where he said he's going to go, or do you think he's going to stop by anywhere else?
Well, to steal a little thunder from here in a few minutes, I don't think we get Ahsoka next episode, right?
Yeah.
I think you and I, we've talked offline, and I think some of the listeners on Discord might agree that we really feel like this is going to be a Chapter 13 thing. Yes, Dave Filoni, it's his episode, and we strongly believe that's when we will get it, and we will have Ahsoka presented the way that Dave Filoni wants.
Right.
It's visualized and directed and all of that. So something else has to happen. So yeah, something probably fails on the ship as it's in hyperspace, and they have to make emergency repairs and emergency stop. I don't know if it's to Navarro though. That would be a bit convenient that it's on the way, and clearly they've got to, he's already plotted the coordinates to go to the planet. So there's something else that they need to go that they'll stop and do. And we know that there's another planet with the speeder bikes and things like that with the Empire, but not clear what episode that is. We've seen that from the teaser trailer as well. So is that coming up on this in-between episode? But yeah, I think you're right. They've got to stop somewhere else. And I imagine the ship just fails and falls out of hyperspace, out of fuel, or it's leaking something or another.
Right.
Kind of their typical.
So the only reason I said Navarro is because we're now, like, if we don't meet up with them in episode 3, or was it 3? Yeah. Like this next episode, if we don't meet up with them then, or 4, I guess at this point, then now we've got Ahsoka Tano with episode 13. So that means at the earliest, and maybe they meet in 13. That would seem kind of weird if the focus is on Ahsoka Tano. So then you're talking about Grief Karga and Cara Dune not coming back now until like with 3 episodes left. And that seems too far. Like it just feels like unless they are in the rest of the episodes at that point, maybe it's okay. But it feels like we probably should just check in with them from a storytelling perspective at this point. And that's why I said, well, then maybe they do stop by, and we get the scene where in the trailer where they're kind of walking up to him and they're kind of smiling. I wonder if they're smiling because this thing just lands and it's a piece of crap and they realize it's smoke and they're like, what are you doing back here? It sounds like you need some help, kind of thing. That's how I would explain it. But nonetheless, I would agree with you. I don't think we get Ahsoka Tano in this next episode. What I said in Discord was, if anything, it's going to be a Luke Skywalker at the end of Force Awakens where she turns around and we cut, right? And that's the last thing we see. Nothing's said, nothing's done. It's just literally a visual to kind of prime you for, the red meat for the episode, which is 13, Dave Filoni's episode. Right. But 100%, I'm with you. I think we don't really see or hear her talk or do anything until 13 comes around.
Well, and I think with just to briefly touch on Grief and Care real quick, I think they could be in the 2-part finale. I think you could probably visit them and just do 2 episodes with them. And again, we know they tend to be a little bit longer. That's still about an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 45 minutes of TV. So that's enough time for them to go back and do that. I could see them waiting. And here's why I kind of like that. Because again, it gives us more time in between the episodes for them to establish that they're doing something else and they've made change. So when we talk about like this, how Star Wars handles time in general, it's always a bit of a struggle for us to understand that this at least gives us the impression that, weeks or months have gone by and they've established something else and that they've actually turned things around. They've had the opportunity and the time to actually do something about it. So I like the idea that they wouldn't come back until in chapter 15 or 16 and still be able to, rally the troops and whatever the issue is with, or whatever they need to. I mean, presumably they're stocking up to have a big showdown with Moff Gideon by that point.
Yeah.
But getting a little ahead of ourselves, but since you touched it, I kind of had a couple thoughts there.
No, I like it. And I can see that too. Like, you make a good point. There's still a lot of time, even if they are at the very tail end of it, that it also could be a springboard for whatever happens in season 3. So
exactly.
Who knows? So let's get some final questions here that I kind of put down. I said, where's Mando headed next? I think we've touched on that. Anything else you want to add on that one?
No.
Okay. Will we see Bo-Katan and the Night Owls again this season?
I sure hope so. I think it's very possible, and I'd be disappointed if we didn't. Great characters, and clearly we I don't know. To answer your question, I'm going to guess probably not. And I don't want to say that, but I'm guessing probably not. To your point, we've got a lot of stories still to get through. Now, very well could, and we didn't really expect to see all the Mandalorians rally to Din in the first place, and they did. And so I think they could make an appearance towards the end of the season. I sure hope so. I really do hope so. And I'm putting that, I'll put like a probably 60-70% chance that they'll show up. But what about you?
Yeah, I've got this Avengers Endgame moment in my head where suddenly they come through the portal and we get the Covenant from his original group. We get these guys. We get everybody that we've seen. Kuiro's back from the dead. IG-11's back, right? Like that. That's playing out in my head right at some point. I don't know if it's this season though. Like, I would like to have them back. If they do come back, I'm with you. I think they come back to help fight Gideon. Maybe they get the Darksaber back. Maybe they don't. But I think they owe him something. And if he is in a bind, they at least are able to kind of neutralize the threat or kind of level the playing field. I think Gideon stays alive. I think he feels like he's going to be the bad guy for another season or two, and he should be. I think because we really haven't had a whole lot of them yet.
Right.
So, do I think they'll come back? Yes, I hope they come back. And my guess it's going to be at that very last battle when he's fighting with Gideon. I think Bo-Katan comes in. Either she takes him out, or if nothing, at the very minimum, she gets her Darksaber back. Right.
Right. And we know that a couple folks earlier on in the chat believe that Moff Gideon will kill Bo-Katan, which of course then clears the way for you to have your Mandalorian or Din moment to unify the clans on his terms and on kind of him in that respect. But yeah, I agree with you. If they show up, that makes a lot of sense for them to be there, especially if they do retrieve the Darksaber and again have the moment where our Mandalorian hands it off to the old guard so that they can start establishing a new Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Or new Mandalore, rather.
Taryn says, if Jonesy says no, then we will definitely see them again. So,
yep. So, well,
he's like,
I gave it 60-70%. I'm like basically 90-100% now. So.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Here's a really serious question. Will we see the Frog family again?
No, please. No,
I don't think we will either. I think they're done. Although if we get the end game, I think they come through the portal as well. And they've got this army of tadpoles that are just armed and wearing like Beskar. That'd be awesome. Okay.
I can't with you.
So seriously, Boba Fett. Like where's Boba at this point? Like,
yeah.
Is he? We got nothing here. I don't expect that. If we see anything in this next episode or even 13, my gut tells me it's going to be more quick oh, I'm still watching you, or look, I was right here and I'm still following you, kind of following your trail kind of thing. But I don't know. I'm getting the sense now, especially the way this is kind of playing out, that we're not going to see Boba Fett. And there's rumors going around right now that there's a Boba Fett series planned. I mean, well, there have been rumors around a Boba series,
Right.
but we've been talking about them for at least, 2 years, 3
Right.
years on this show. But if that's the case, then maybe we do get, maybe they're setting up pieces in here for that series to kind of, to launch here, next year or a couple years or whatever. But so, anyways, do you think this changes anything for Boba the rest of the season?
Yeah, I agree. It's really hard to see where he's fitting in with the storyline right now. It made a lot of sense before when we were on Tatooine, and now, but again, how is he getting off the planet? I don't really think he has a ship, to be honest with you. So how does he work back into the story? What I can see is that we get kind of an epilogue moment after the season finale. And let's just say the season finale is on Navarro, of all places, and Boba has found a way to get to Navarro. And again, we kind of see him pop up again, more of a cameo type of thing. I could definitely see something like that happening, but does he have a story in all of this? And we got 5 chapters left, and we know we've got certain things we have to hit that we know we're going
Right.
to hit,
Right.
especially with Ahsoka Tano. And it's really difficult to see how that works into it right now. And so I think it's going to be more of a cameo, probably season finale type of thing, epilogue type of moment.
Yeah, I'm with you there. There's just too much going on. Like we've got too much to wrap up, and introducing Boba Fett anymore at this point they don't have to do it. All right, they do not have
Right.
to do it right now. Yeah,
And they did they did this last year, right? We got the tease for it last year for Cobb Vanth, and we didn't know who it was, and they delivered on it this year. So again, makes sense to say, okay, we teased you in season 2. Now you got something else to look forward to that's going to be on the Cantina Cast hype show for season 3. So stay
Right.
tuned for next year. We'll be close to episode 400 by then.
Episode 400. Okay, I guess maybe the last question, unless you've got some other ones here, but does this change anything? Like going back to our predictions from the final hype show coming into season 2, does this change any of your predictions? Does it modify anything? Does it add anything to what you think we're going to see here before all's done with season 2?
Well, I think when we look at the lore aspect of this, I don't know if it's changing, but it's definitely shaping, and it's giving us a little bit more clarity around what's going on. And I think this is something that can still continue to weave in and out of the story and give us just little tiny tidbits here and there that, again, to give us this focus a bit about what's the state of the Mandalorians in general, as well as now we know we have these 2 sects between them, these 2 different ideologies of how this thing works. So, but is it changing kind of the view, the direction we went? I think overall, no. But I think we are getting elements that are enhancing it. And so I definitely think we're getting some things to enhance it. This episode, I think in particular, has done a lot to progress that aspect of it and kind of feel like, yes, we've got back to the Mandalorian type of ways. And not to say that the Cobb Vanth episode wasn't great, the Marshall, but I think this one kind of gets back to the core a bit, which I was really happy about, that we're seeing other Mandalorians, we're getting other ideas of what it means to be Mandalorian, and we're getting to see that interactions as well. And so I think this is done as much to enhance it as any of the, as much as the armor aspects that we had in season 1. So I'm really excited about that. So is it changing your perspective on it all?
I don't know. Like, not really. Like, it feels like, so again, my headcanon is him, eventually taking back Mandalore and leading the tribes and bringing all the clans together. I think all of that can still happen. I think Bo-Katan being introduced at this point and her declaring, I am the true heiress and that sword's mine, that kind of thing, I think it changes it slightly. I really want him to be, and I know this is not a popular opinion. I think a lot of people just want the Mandalore to be who he was, which is fine. I think there's a story to be told there where he's back to his old ways and traveling around without a kid and just being, the Boba Fett that we always wanted.
Right.
I think there's a story there. But if I go back to, again, where I want him to go, I think Bo-Katan, if nothing else, she takes back she gets the Darksaber somewhere while we're still following what the Mandalorian's doing. She's out there trying to unite the clans, and I don't think she's successful. And I think eventually he comes back, tries to help them out, and I think she pays it forward, right? They paid it forward to her. Sabine had the Darksaber. She was going to be the leader of Mandalore. And she said, you know what? This isn't me. This is actually you. You're the rightful person. You need to be the right person to do this. And that's how she got the Darksaber, and that's how she was. Now, granted, she had her bloodline, right? That the whole Kree's bloodline was kind of heir to the throne kind of thing. But I could see a situation where, the Mandalorian helps unite the clans because he's better. He's able to unite the old ways and the new ways. He's seen both of them. Both of them respect him, or maybe even some of the other clans that we haven't seen yet or talked about. But he is kind of that one unifying person that they need, where Bo-Katan struggles with that because she doesn't have what she had in Star Wars Rebels. So from that perspective, I can see her at least making an attempt, and we think that's the end of it, when the reality is, if that truly is where the series goes, she reaches out to him, or when they come in contact again, she acknowledges that, hey, you know what? You're actually the right person to do this. It isn't about my new ways. It's not about the old ways. We need somebody that's seen both sides that can unite us and take back Mandalore, and that person's you. And I think he still becomes the Mandalorian that I want him to become, but just, a minor step in there now that Bo-Katan's been put into the series.
Yeah, and I think the more I think about it, I think you've definitely got a path here. I feel like we're talking about politics. There's a path to 270. I heard that so many times. Right? But I think there's actually a path here for you. And of you're right. If someone like Bo-Katan, who let's give her the benefit of doubt from her side of things, still is identified and viewed as the rightful heir to the Mandalorian throne and to the to the society and everything else. The gesture of her handing that off to someone else, and in your case, Den in this case, would be in an effort to unify and show that unity, that she's willing to pledge herself to the Mandalore and Den in this case.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would go a very long way, and that gives a lot of credibility to that unification of the two different ideologies and bringing them back together and saying, yes, we have a common enemy, we have a common goal. We need to truly unify in order to be able to accomplish what we can. And again, we are better together than we are apart.
Yeah.
So I think I'm definitely seeing that path for you. I mean, it becomes more and more real, I think, as we continue to have Bo-Katan in. And if she has this dark saber and she starts to view her role as something maybe evolving into something different, or perhaps she does it as she dies or something. There's different ways you can get there now. And I think they're becoming more real for you. So your hopes should be high or higher at this point. So
I'm not going to let the dream die.
Right.
So we'll see. Who knows? I'm fine with it either way. Like, if it doesn't play out that way, just give me a good story. Right? You don't have to do what I tell you. Okay. This
time.
Yep. This time. All right. We're done. This is we'll end it right here. We'll be back next week for 351. That's crazy. So chapter 12. We'll do that back on Wednesday. We're going to go back to at least for now, we'll go back to our normal recording time. So that'll be 9 p.m. Central for that show. Before we go, thank you everybody who joined us tonight on the live show and the live recording. Thank you for all the comments, all of the questions. It was great interacting with everybody. Please subscribe to the show on YouTube and subscribe to the podcast if you're not already listening. I know we've pulled up we can tell by the downloads, we've gotten a lot of new listeners because there's people that are interested in The Mandalorian and want to know what our show's about. So hopefully you guys are enjoying this. Subscribe to the show. And then, of course, leave us any feedback that you can on Apple iTunes. Or, iTunes reviews are always great to have. So please take a moment to put in some kind words there, should your heart be moved to do so.
Right. And definitely come and join us in Discord, where, again, on Friday mornings, early, Albert and a few others are definitely having a robust conversation and very lively for that time of morning when the show comes out. And then we've been actually doing a bit of a group watch on Disney Plus on Friday evenings. And so we're going to try to make that a regular thing. We've had, I think, upwards of 5 or 6, we can only have 6 people in a party, but we're doing some of that. And it's been fun. Again, we have more conversations. So if you want to check us out, eargluemedia.com/Discord, and you can go and sign up and join us and kind of participate in the conversations and get to see all the other great shows we have on the network, including The Basement with Ernie Klein coming up on December 2nd.
Hey, thank you for that plug.
You're welcome.
At least you did it and I didn't. So
I'm going to work on my gold thing.
Yeah.
Commercials.
Words. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Might as well practice with The Basement RPO. Yeah. Check it out on YouTube.
You're doing a fine job. Thank you so much. Okay, that's it. We'll see you guys episode 351 next week.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property, and all that other good, fun stuff. But I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what. So that's your disclaimer.